Over. Against? Carried. Thank you. Our only report for this meeting is report 8.1, which is the actions register update. So the purpose of this report is just to give an update on actions that we've requested throughout the meetings, and we only have one item on there being a workshop on the vehicle fleet, and this kind of sits across two committees, being the Infrastructure and Environmental Services, and is a outcome from one of the reports that Mr. Taylor presented at a previous meeting. We had asked to have a review of the fleet in regards to petrol, diesel versus hybrid versus electric. So we haven't actually had that workshop, but we did get a reply from Mr. Taylor, which I'll just read out to you if I may, when I find it in my emails. Yeah. So his response was, there'll be a focus on opportunities for a reduction of carbon emissions from fleet vehicles. The Climate Change Advisor, that's Mr. Taylor, proposes to use smart track data with help when available from Deb Gherkin and the transport team to compare, to compare our use of similar sized petrol-only vehicles and hybrid vehicles within the fleet to estimate fuel saving impact. Also to review average distances travelled per staff work trip to see what proportion might in future be tackled conveniently by small battery electric vehicles. A second area of investigation is availability and cost of recharging facilities for our battery-powered vehicles at or near the offices, including Alpine power supply capacity. On a related topic, the second staff travel to work survey at Council has just been completed. Last year, the estimated carbon emissions from staff travel to work exceeded those of the pool vehicle use, so future attempts to reduce emissions in this area would be valuable. And so he wasn't sure if that satisfied the request or whether we still wanted a workshop or if we had any other questions. So are there any other questions on that? Is there a view on whether this still needs to be an action, or what do we want to do there?
Through you, Madam Chair. Look, I think the last time we reviewed this was pre this council, wasn't it? It might have been pre the council before. It feels like it's a while ago. Mr. Dixon, you might be able to speak to this, but it feels like it was 4 years ago. So I think it would be of value for an update for the current elected member group, just to understand what has been considered in the past, and maybe status quo is fine. And I know there's a lot of hybrids sitting within the fleet as an example, but it would be good for the elected members to understand the practicalities of where some of our vehicles go, etc., and the use for TDC business. So I think it still has some value.
So as a workshop, or do you think that could be covered off as just a report back to this committee?
Probably happy to be guided by the staff.
Mr. Trainer, do you have a view on that?
I think it would be valuable to do a report to the committees, and that way we've got something in writing, and this is recommendations coming from that.
Is everyone happy with that plan of attack? Okay, so if we could change the action to be a report back to the committee on the vehicle fleet, that would be good. So does somebody want to, sorry, I'll just go back to my meeting notes. So the recommendation is that the Environmental Services Committee receives and notes the updates to the actions register, and I will just add to that, and that we request that a report is brought back to the committee on the vehicle fleet. Would someone like to move that?
Happy to move, but can I suggest an amendment that we put an agreed time?
Oh yeah, that would be a good idea. When do you think that might be a good timeline for that, Mr. Trainer or Mr. Dixon? At the next meeting. Cool, thank you. So Mayor Bowen has moved that. Seconder, looking around, Councillor Burt. I'll put the motion to the floor. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So now we move on to, there's no consideration of urgent business, so we'll move on to the consideration of minor nature matters, and I'll just ask Mr. Cooper if he could just give us an update on the Group Committee he attended last week. Thank you, Mr Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. ECAN councillors received an update last Thursday, and some people around the table were invited to attend on behalf of TDC as key stakeholders. And that was an interesting discussion in and of itself. And then on Friday, I attended the steering group meeting to have an update on the draft consultation for the strategy for the revival, Rakitata Revival Programme. There were some key themes that have come through the consultation process, and one of the strongest was that there's a perception in the community, particularly in the farming community who might be affected, that they've been left outside of the tent, as it were, or they don't feel as though they've been treated as a key stakeholder, as land users as they see themselves. So that came through as a strong theme. There was a sports, fishing and access to the riverbed theme that came through the consultation. There was, what also came through was that there isn't a great deal of light shed on the regulatory environment in terms of the strategy itself. So there were questions around how that strategy might tackle the regulatory environment for land use and other matters. The South Branch caused a bit of concern, particularly with land users, landowners. That came through as a theme. And there was also an appetite for stronger recognition of existing community groups that are doing really good work. And I think that's a reference to the Upper Rangitata Landcare Group. They've been doing some great work for a number of years. And there was also water quality and allocation came through as a theme. My observations of the two meetings would be that there appears to be two camps forming. One around economic needs and drivers and land use, and the other environmental and cultural. And it seems to be that both parties need to work to reassure the other group, as it were, of the value and the safety, as it were, lack of because there are some perceived threats in here, particularly to the farming community. So it would be, how do we get them in the tent? How do we give them reassurance that that's not the intent of this, and it is a long-term project, not something that's going to happen in the short term. It's something to aspire to and work towards over many, many years. So I think it'll ultimately come down to whether or not those people feel that they are in the tent, as to whether or not this council and possibly Ashburton Council feel comfortable enough to ratify it. And ECAN, we're hoping to have this to us following some more consultation to come back for a decision on whether or not we support the strategy sort of July, August. So that's where it's at the minute. Next steps are more engagement. There's talk of targeting particular influencers and particular groups within the farming community. I think that would be helpful. And there's also going to be another round of online engagement as well. So we'll see how that shapes up and how it develops over the coming months. But that's probably an update from me in a nutshell, unless there's any questions, which I'll be happy to answer.
Right, well, thank you, Mr Cooper. Are there any questions for Mr Cooper? No?
Like a comment, if you may, and I think the challenge with this, and you know, from a district council point of view, we need to be not just seen, but I think we, you know, generally want to be, you know, investing in the, you know, the health of the waterway. I think the problem that I see is that we're playing economic versus cultural, environmental, you know, outcomes against each other, but they don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive. So those conversations, need to be had together. It was interesting, I think Councillor McKenzie from ECAN raised the point, I don't know if he raised the asset value, but, you've got $800 million worth of assets sitting in the South Branch as an example, and TDC, Timaru District economy and the Ashburton economy, are fuelled, or large parts of our economy are fuelled by that river. So it's such an important, it is the lifeblood of the region. That's the reality of it. So we do need to somehow strike some balance on what is right. And I just think, I'd like to see more time on getting the strategy right for all parties, rather than, and I know it's taken some time, but get all voices heard so we can get an agreed direction. And ultimately, I think that'll be a better outcome, rather than rushing to something whereby councils aren't endorsing something because the voice isn't heard. I think maybe that's something that TDC should just suggest, and I'd be interesting to hear other views, but, what is the rush to get this done versus doing it right, would be my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Bowen. Anyone else have any comments or questions? If not, I might ask somebody to move that we adopt the verbal update. Thank you, Mayor Bowen, from Mr Cooper. And a seconder, thank you, Councillor Scott. I'll put the motion to the floor. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. And I'm assuming there's no discussion required after our public forum, and so I will therefore close the meeting in a record 20 minutes at 10:20. Thank you.